This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. From time to time, we're going to catch up with the people who have shared their story on the show. Last time we caught up with Mark Jensen. He was trying everything to keep the business alive, including hiring the help of Keith, a part-time restaurant manager and full-time mannequin. Jensen had found what he believed to be a new sustainable restaurant model. But things have evolved even further since then. Mark, how you going?
I'm very well, Anthony. How are you?
Good. Has Keith survived during this time?
Well, Keith is still surviving. He's about, but I've had to retire him. His services were no longer required.
It's been ages since we caught up and you shared sort of what's happened with Red Lantern. What's happened now that sort of trade is almost back to normal? There's still some restrictions. What's this period of time been like?
Oh, it's been crazy, like you just said. I mean, it's absolutely been a lifetime. I mean, so much has changed. The last time we spoke, I was talking about Red Lantern in a box and how we got that up and going, and that that business was doing so well. I was so impressed with it. It was the perfect business to run out of your garage, actually, with like no overheads. I'd be retiring right now as I speak to you. But you're right. With the opening of restrictions, people could go back and dine in the restaurant, and literally overnight, the demand for that product fell. So within 2 weeks of people being able to go back into restaurants, I actually pulled the plug on Red Lantern in a box. It served us well, but time moved on. So it has been interesting because as you know, baby steps from 10 to 20, and then the one person per 4 square meter rule kicked in. So that still means, unfortunately for us, we're only limited to sort of 36 people in a venue that can sit up to 80 people. So it's quite incredible actually, and it's been very, very challenging. That's presented new challenges. Just to get people through the door. I think that demand has really softened, and it's one of those things. I also talked about social media, how I was spending a lot of time on social media. It's sort of like I've got to the point now where I'm just sort of again trying new things to try and be front of mind to get the clientele back, because it's a tough road back to normality.
Seating 36 people when you can normally seat 80 seems like that'll be hard to make money. And what's it like seeing other restaurants? What are you seeing out there? Do you think people are sticking to the restrictions?
I think there's been a major change. The last time we spoke, I was saying how many people weren't. I think most people are now, but now it depends on how big they are. And obviously, restaurants with outdoor seating are doing better. Yeah, so I think it's more positive. I think it just will take something just to get people's confidence to get out and about. I know a lot of restaurants around here have closed or have failed to reopen. So, hospitality is still under fire. I know some restaurants that are doing well. I mean, especially regional restaurants, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So the dynamic has kind of changed a little bit. The CBD in Sydney is still very soft. And I would even say where I am in Darlinghurst, things are very soft as well. It's interesting, if I can take you back a little bit. We're actually trading quite well, and I was building slowly, and I was quite positive for the future. But then we had an outbreak in Potts Point, not once but twice. And literally overnight, I had customers again cancelling reservations, and business dropped again dramatically. And to tell you the truth, that's been about 11 weeks ago, and it's frustrating because I just haven't been able to build momentum, and I'm sort of trading at that lesser point again almost consistently every week. It's almost like I'm consistently doing the same number of people, taking consistently the same amount of money. But you and I both know that business is not about staying the same or trading water. We have to show growth. So we have to increase the numbers of customers we do, and generate more revenue, more dollars through the till.
That's interesting because a lot of people are worried about there being cases in their own restaurants, but it's actually the spot cases within a suburb over that can affect your restaurant so much. What sort of landscape are you expecting us to be in the next 2 years? We've had 20 or so cases in Adelaide and seen borders closing. Like, how are you feeling about the potential in the next 2 years?
Well, obviously, there's a lot riding on a vaccine being made available soon. But also, I think we've come to a point where we just have to accept that this virus lives in our community, and we have to go forward, abiding by all the measures that are in place, but also realizing that there's inherent risk in everything we do in life. There are no guarantees anywhere in life. So it's one of those things where if we want to maintain a vibrant hospitality industry, people are going to have to, calculate the risk and realize that, sure, there's a possibility, but as each day passes, that possibility decreases.
When we were caught up last time, you were talking about the perfect sort of restaurant model and how you can cut costs with the structure of a menu. What's the current situation with Valent and what are you offering?
I'm still offering a set banquet menu because I was talking about the efficiencies of a banquet menu and limiting choice. I have, but I got to the point where I was thinking whether that was dissuading people from attending the restaurant. So 2 nights a week, I'm still only trading 4 nights a week. 2 nights of the week, Wednesday and Thursday, I offer the banquet menu and a very limited a la carte menu. But I find that most people take the banquet menu anyway. But it's just nice to give people that choice. But I have no desire to go back to an a la carte model anytime soon. It makes sense on the number of people that I can employ, and like I said, business isn't growing. We're treading water, so I don't have the capital to invest in employing new people. And I think a lot of people are now finding that to be a bit of a frustration where they might want to put the hammer down or roll the dice and say, okay, let's take business from 4 nights a week to 5, but they possibly can't really afford to employ someone. But now we're also finding that there is no one to employ for vacant, vacancy ads are going unanswered, which is just totally ironic, but I guess totally expected given that unfortunately migrant workers were sent home.
You've got a nice little laneway behind the restaurant there, and at one stage you had a cocktail bar at the back of Red Lantern. What have you done that's a bit different now in this time?
Well, I thought COVID is a time to just try anything, like throw caution to the wind. And many people don't know this, but many years ago, before I became a chef, I actually trained as a hairdresser. So I've got 2 trades under my belt, and what I've done is actually turned the back dining room into a barbershop.
Wow.
So I've opened the cut barbershop and gentlemen's collective.
Wow. What's it been like running a barber and a restaurant at the same time?
Well, it's actually really cool. I think the other day was a perfect example of what I want to happen, because it's about just creating a hub, and I mean it's not exclusively for men. I guess I should say I cut short hair well. So the thing is, I just want I just want to make it a destination because I've got clothes in here. I've got some really cool designers in here. I'm going to get a stereo and records in here so people can come and listen to records, maybe browse at the clothes, buy a beer. I can potentially take them through to the restaurant so they can buy a meal. And the other day, the absolute gold standard moment happened for me when a customer walked in. He walked in down the laneway and went, "Wow, this is cool. This is like being in Japan." Like I'm just walking down this laneway. I can smell food, but you're cutting hair here and you've got clothes. And he came in and had a haircut, and then he said, well, chatting to him, he's talking about how it's his responsibility to organise, the Christmas party this year for the office. And I said, well, let me take you through to the front of the restaurant, and I booked him a table for 12. So this is ultimately the vision, ultimately what I want to happen with this space. And it's also a safe space because I realize this time it's like, we touched briefly on mental health before, but in our previous chat. But I think this is a time where, if I can provide a safe space for people to come and hang out and, just open up conversations about how they're feeling, about present, future. And also, I've got a wealth of of information about running restaurants. I've been running this one for 20, and I've been in the hospitality industry for 30 years. So come and have a haircut. If someone can sit down and have a haircut, shoot the breeze, and ask me anything. And it's a really safe space, and it's quite exciting, the conversations that you can have in a barber's chair.
With international tourists out of the picture, but lots of people home for the first time in years, what sort of summer do you think it's going to be?
Again, I think it's going to be an interesting one because regional restaurants, I have a few friends with regional restaurants, and they've always done all right. But now it's just like boom time because people are they're traveling at home now. They have no alternative. So they're getting out and traveling the country, which is an awesome thing. So I'll see a bit of a boom in regional. As for the CBD, I really don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully it's a beach weather summer, and people will elect to stay around, and maybe they'll get out and support their local restaurants.
You're in Darlinghurst, and you mentioned that the market is still pretty soft there. What sort of things need to change to help restaurants in sort of CBD locations like yourself?
Well, interestingly, because I was all for people working at home, but then that's actually uncovered the fact that it's really identified who is introverted and who's extroverted. But I think if we can get to a point where at least half the workforce comes back into the CBD, that would be a good thing, because we need people, and we need people working again to keep our industry vital.
When we last caught up, you mentioned that you're spending a bit of time in the kitchen and also on social media. How do you prefer to spend your time now, cutting hair or in the kitchen? What are we going to see from Mark Jensen more often than not?
Well, I was saying to Pauline, my wife, the other day, I said, actually, cutting hair is going to make me a better cook. And she kind of looked at me a bit perplexed. But the thing is, I've had almost 20 years nonstop on the pans. And I mean, that's intense, man. Like I don't know too many like people post 50 who are literally pulling sort of services on the pans these days. And to actually step out, it's sort of like my little barbershop sabbatical, where I can actually, sit and ponder, because a barbershop's a totally different pace. So I get time to sit down and reflect, and to think about food and just life in general. And the beauty of where I'm situated here, my kitchen is just through the corridor to the left. So I can still be very hands-on and supervise what's going on, and still be here, still be present in the restaurant, to make sure that everything fires.
What's next for Red Lantern? We've seen Keith. We've seen you've turned it into a barber as well. How are you feeling about your spot in the industry moving forward?
Well, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this one, because previously we spoke, I was saying how I feel there's going to be a real demarcation between the top end, the aspirational restaurants, and the lower end, where people just go and eat. And I think the real struggle street's going to be where I'm situated now, that family-run, bigger restaurant, which will have a little bit of an identity crisis, I think, going forward. So I'm thinking about really honing my offering, potentially making it a little bit more casual. I think I just think I'm one of many who are just sort of really looking at their business plan going forward. So I'm kind of hoping, in a perfect world, that I've got the barbershop here. I've got potential to expand onto the streets, so maybe make that kind of more of a casual drinking environment, and then just lower the price point a little bit throughout the restaurant, but still deliver that Red Lantern experience, just so it's more of a drop in, more casual. Because I think that even though I'm the middle price point, I'm still seen as a destination kind of place, because people still come here, and I'm very fortunate. People still come here to celebrate anniversaries, birthdays, and big occasions in their life. So I'd like to retain that, but also open it up to a different market. And I think that is the key, how, like, actually getting some inroads into different markets, so that you're getting a little bit here, a little bit there, all adding to the pot of success.
When we last caught up, you mentioned We talked about how nearly everyone on the series had realised that they had a family, and I think you mentioned the fact that that time that everyone has had made them realise all of the energy they were putting into restaurants and whether it was worth it. How are you feeling about that sort of thing as part of the future of hospitality, of less hours and more care in regards to mental health?
Oh, I think that's key going forward. I listened to your Dan Barber podcast, and it sounds like he's pretty much doing the same thing. I think one thing we've seen from this is people have actually taken stock of their lives and thought, I don't know if it's worth it. And we've had I might be going on a limb here, but I don't think so. We've had a mass exodus of people who made this restaurant great. They've just decided that it's time to retrain. It's time to maybe get a day job. So it's going to be challenging going forward, employing the staff that we need, the people that we need to keep the restaurant scene vibrant. But I think it's doable, and I really think that as soon as the borders open and students come back, and because let's be serious, I mean, students and migrant workers are the backbone of this industry today. And until they come back and are allowed to work, I mean, it's going to be hard. I've already hearing stories of people advertising and not getting anyone to apply for the position. Well, that's kind of unheard of.
I never thought I'd ask this of you, Mark, but what actually makes a good short back and sides?
Well, I think it's being methodical, and it's funny. It's a bit like cooking. Like I've named the barbershop The Cut Gentlemen's Collective, but I actually named the name came from that series Sons of Anarchy, where the bikers were always talking about the cut. So it was that sense of brotherhood. So the cut sort of came from that. But then as I was thinking about it, the cut with my career with knives and my career with scissors kind of makes sense as well. But like I find that barbering is a little bit like cooking. It's like you're following a recipe and you're being very methodical. So the key to a very good short back and sides is being methodical.
Amazing, Mark. You're a bloody legend. It's always good to catch up, and I can't even imagine what iteration of Red Lantern we're going to see when we catch up next time, but I'm sure it'll be entertaining. We've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds, mate. Keep in touch, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Oh, fantastic. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.